So, welcome back to the Royval Football Show, but then this time we're not talking about football. This is a debut of the Other Things series, and we have some other things to talk about that's really important here. So, I have my friend Shane Connelly on. Shane, how are you doing?
Oh, I am doing just great, Ryan. I'm glad that you brought me on. I'm glad that you're introducing something new by also introducing me.
Yep. So, let's start. We're going to talk about UFC. You'll probably be a recurring guest if something big happens, wherever I will be in this earth of ours. So, let's go straight into it. 253, we're going to focus on three fights. Kai France, Royval, Dominick Reyes, Jan Blachowicz, and Israel Adesanya, Paulo Costa. But then first, do you want to talk about Diego Sanchez for a second?
Maybe we can just talk about the Masvidal impression that he did leaning up against the cage to start, I believe it was the third round against Jake Matthews. He kind of just, I think, really the execution of the whole thing was just a mess. But the biggest thing was like Masvidal did the lean for like maybe 1 second when the fight started, and then he went for the knee. Like with Diego Sanchez, I felt like he was sitting there for like 5 minutes, and then like he threw like the weirdest like half attempted flying knee I've ever seen, and like Jake Matthews did not fall for it at all. The whole thing was very awkward.
Right.
Peak Diego Sanchez. That's it.
All right. Okay. So let's actually move to the more important, I guess, just from how the card ranks, but also there are pretty weird fights to some degree. Let's talk about the Kai France fight first, because, like, in my opinion, I think he should have won that fight, like, just on the cards. But then, of course, when you get to the fight, it gets crazy. It got really crazy, especially to start. So, like, what do you think about, like, the double knockdown, like the early scramble, and then Royval finding that choke again? Like, he's been submitting people left and right, but then Kai France is, I feel like he's the next one to kind of come around in the flyweight, especially with the lower weight classes kind of going in and out of favor. So what do you make of that result?
I mean, I think the biggest thing that you take away is just, how do you not like this division? How do you not want more of these guys? The best thing is that it's very rare that you see the flyweights put on a card like this where they're kind of showcased a little bit. They're right before the co-main event. This is when even like the most casual fan, you're probably starting to tune in around this time, and they put on a great show. So it's like, how could you possibly say like you want to get rid of this division? But in terms of the actual result, I mean, does this hurt Kai France's stock a little bit? Yeah, I think at one point he was viewed as like someone who could definitely be like a challenger in the future. I think Brandon Royval is just like, all this does for him is just help him get into like that upper echelon of the division. I think that like it kind of does cut off like right at those guys, at flyweight. That's when you start to get into like the Jussier Formigas, the Alex Perez, Askar Askarov, people like that. I think this just solidifies that he deserves a shot at one of those guys. With Kai France, I think he's just one fight away from that now. And it seems like the next fight is going to be huge for him, because he's obviously a guy that comes in, training with guys like, Izzy, people like that. It's like, people expect a lot out of him. And people do expect that he is going to be a challenger in this division. Like I said, the good thing for him is that this division is open. And, an incredible performance, like back and forth, like can't hurt him too much, good to get his name out there, stuff like that. But I do think overall, yeah, I think he's probably now just small setback.
Yeah, and you look at it, this is like the fight of the night, of course, all the action. And when we talk about like, the lower weight classes, we have been liking it a lot. Like, just from the all action standpoint, instead of watching like a, I don't know, 14th fight a 7th or 8th in the heavyweight, like, no.
Yeah.
All right, let's move.
Yes.
let's move straight on then, because this is a fight that kind of shook the light heavyweight upper echelon and also like reshuffled things by a little bit, but still rather unexpected result considering Dominick Reyes is like the 3-1 favorite to win the fight. But Jan Blachowicz won. Like, he knocked him out in the second round.
Yeah.
I don't think like most of the matchmakers would have expected that. Like, it could be competitive, but like, how did that come to happen with like a 37-year-old like Polish, like like I would say he fights very Polish. Just looking back at the history of Polish fighters to come into the MMA and the UFC. So, of course, let's just talk about a fight a little bit because it looks like Reyes never really settled into the fight, especially to start off. And then Blachowicz just came in ready to fire, and it's not even a lot of exchanges in a way, where it's more like Blachowicz finding his range and teeing off.
Yeah, I mean, not the performance I expected out of Dominick Reyes. I think he was a guy that surprised a ton of people with the Jon Jones fight. I think he came in with the expectation of like, this is, people were starting to think like after the like Santos thing, Jon Jones maybe is like losing a step a little bit. But I don't know. I mean, like Dominick Reyes, I thought like his performance against Jon Jones said a lot about Dominick Reyes. And then now I'm not so sure because I truly expected this to be like, like Jan was just the guy who got brought up. And they were really kind of angling this as like, this is Dominick Reyes. This is his chance to get the title back, or get the title for the first time. This was a chance for Jon Jones to try to get the title back. If like the heavyweight thing doesn't work out, who knows what's going on with that because, he's teased it so many times. But Jan came in and just said, nah, I'm just going to, take matters into my own hands. And that's what he did. I mean, it's just really impressive how much Jan has turned this around. I think he was viewed for a lot as a guy who was kind of just middle of the pack at light heavyweight. And then he came in and just pulls off this upset. So, I mean, all credit to him. Like, I think he just came out and executed, and, we just kind of wound up getting something that we didn't expect. It was really just, it was just one-sided.
So quickly, let's take a look at the light heavyweight division as a whole, because like even like we talked earlier, there's not much certainty around the whole thing. Jon Jones still looking at the heavyweight thing. Like you said, we never know if it's going to happen. Now, probably the star in the making, I guess, or like the pre-crowned champion in Dominick Reyes fell. And we have a fight that we don't know if it's actually going to happen with Thiago Santos and Glover Teixeira. So how do you think this light heavyweight situation is going to shape out?
I mean, it's just, this all, like, so much depends on this Thiago Santos, Glover Teixeira, which is apparently just cursed. I mean, I think we're in the COVID era of MMA, we've seen a couple of fights that are just cursed, just not going to happen. Joining the ranks of, the Tony Khabib fight, that is just never going to happen. But that Thiago Santos fight, it's so pivotal because it's like, we keep getting Thiago Santos pushed back. Like it was so long. It's been so long since the Jon Jones fight. And it was like, and the Jon Jones fight, again, same thing with Dominick Reyes. Like, he goes into the Jones fight and people are kind of just like, we'll see what happens, but we're not expecting much. And then all of a sudden it's like, this guy's out here on one leg, and he's like taking the fight to Jon Jones. I mean, if that doesn't get you excited about like what he can do for the future, no matter what, like that he was getting, he had like kind of a decent showing at middleweight before moving up. It's like, this division, same thing. This division's just open, but like he's at the top right now. He's at the top because of the Jon Jones thing. He has a matchup against Glover Teixeira, which is like, I don't know how Glover Teixeira has caught this like second wind in his career or second, or I don't know, this is the third win. Is that even a thing? Like,
Oh god.
the guy is old. The guy's old, and I think people thought when he came to the UFC that it was like, well, he's past his prime now, and he's sitting at number 3. Looking at the UFC rankings right now, it's like, I don't know, man. This fight needs to happen because we do need to get that shaped up. I think that whoever wins that fight is like the clear next title challenger for Jan. You know, as much as John Jones is going to be like, you want to go see me get my belt back, whatever. I think he's okay with just moving up at this point. Although you never know, it's John Jones. But the only other, like, there's compelling people in the division. When we talk like Alexander Rakic, you know, it's like sad that Volkan Ozdemir is 6, but like he is kind of exciting. You know, he's fun to watch. And obviously we're talking about light heavyweights, so Jiří Procházka is like someone that like you kind of have to look at after one fight in the UFC, because that is all it takes in this division. But right now it's just everything in the title picture hinges on that Santos Teixeira fight.
Mm-hmm. So, quick yes or no question. Final thing about light heavyweight. If, like, let's consider Jones moves up and he stays there for a while, because competition might be better, might be worse, you never know. He stays there for a while and possibly never really move back down. Do you see light heavyweight? Do you agree with, like, I agree with some of the writers that have been putting this kind of idea out. Do you think light heavyweight we would go back to the time where post Liddell, pre-Jones, right when there's like 4 or 5 randos, relatively in, like, especially light heavyweight history, that, you know, they would just pop up and be like, hey, I have the belt, and then, hey, I have the belt, I got the belt from this guy, and I got the belt from this guy, until someone really comes up.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to say that we are like entering the Jan Blachowicz era. I don't think that we have. You know, I think it's a great story. I think it's really cool that he won the belt. I saw the video of him going back to Poland. He gets a nice hero's welcome and everything. And I think it's just cool that he had this like pretty you know, quick ascent up the rankings after having like a tough start. Do I have any faith that a 37-year-old is going to keep this belt for a really long time? Nah, not really at all. I think, yes, to answer your question, yes, there's going to be there's going to be just more compelling matchups. There's going to be a lot of shifting in the rankings now without Jones. And whether or not the skill level is like legitimately improving in light heavyweight, it's at least going to be, you know, fun to see how things are moving around.
Mm-hmm. So finally, of course, we have the big daddy here. Israel Adesanya, Paulo Costa. Let's spare the listeners and watchers and audience from what he has been tweeting out in the past few days regarding the fight. But let's just talk about it, because I vividly remember, like, I was in good condition when I watched that fight. So I was watching it pretty intently, and after like a round, I texted you saying like, wait, did Costa even land like a real good strike? And the answer in my head is no. And then, of course, we go into the second round and the whole thing wrapped up. And let's just quickly talk about the fight here, because there's not much to talk about. Izzy slapped Paulo Costa around. Like, Costa has that type of, you know, bulldoggy, he kind of rushes you and flusters you, and that's how he's good. And Izzy just uses footwork, uses movement for one, but then also just, you know, keeping him a little bit further away, and like he looks like turtle in a shell. So what do you make of this performance, but particularly for Izzy?
I mean, I think the biggest thing that you take away from Izzy is just like, now where do you go? Like, you know, like people were talking about like Costa as being, you know, like I think the Romero fight was so intriguing because it was like Romero's just going to walk him down. And then like that just obviously did not happen. I think the Costa fight, people were like, he's going to walk him down. He's going to be able to punch the body. That's going to make a difference as he's going to, you know, attack the body because Izzy's so like relying on head movement. Like the body's going to be the go-to. And then it was just kind of like, you know, now for Izzy, it's like, it's a great showing because it's like, he just absolutely crush somebody that people were really high on. But did we learn so much about Izzy, or did we just kind of like, from this performance, or did we just learn that like, oh yeah, no, he's just good. Like, like, I don't know if we ever learned, like, I don't think we saw like an evolution in Izzy's game. I don't think we saw something that was like, like, oh, like this is proof that he's going to be champion forever. I think it's just like, we kind of knew going in that he is just really good, and he's like nearly unstoppable for anyone in this division. And this fight was just another like, yeah, that's it. He did it. Like, like,
yeah.
I think a lot of people were hyped up on Costa because it's like, he was the prospect that's like fun, and it's like, and he was a pressure guy and all that stuff. I just think stylistically, Izzy's above what, like, I thought of this before the fight, that like stylistically Izzy is just above everybody in that division. And I think he didn't have to prove anything. And I don't know if he proved anything other than like, hey, I'm taking this guy out. There's no need for a rematch. And, on to the next one.
Yeah, like, when you look at it, he's just that good. Like,
yeah.
when you compare it to, say, like, I feel like the Whittaker fight or like the Gastelum fight, like, those are the fun fights. He's been doing the same thing. But then, he just takes people out. Like, Romero fight is an anomaly, but then you consider how Romero uses short burst and whatnot, then you could probably see that coming. But then, like, Costa is just like a skillful dismantling, and like he could have done nothing about it. Like, he just stood there. Like, he took that body kick, and there's this huge mark on his side. I was like, geez, that's like one kick. So
yeah,
I mean, I know we've touched it very briefly. Maybe this could be brief. Looking into the future, do you see anyone challenging Izzy? Let's put a time frame on it. Say he fights like twice a year as a champion.
Mm.
Do you see him like in the next 2 years, 4 fights, say, being significantly challenged from someone in the middleweight, which is talented, but it feels like it's Izzy, and then it's a bunch of people that are really good that they're gonna fight each other a lot and have fun fights. But then, is anyone touching him like in the short future? Like, long future, we never know. Someone could come up like in like 3 years, and we've never heard of him as of right now. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, is our guy like Jared Cannonier? Is that the guy that we have to put faith in right now? Jared Cannonier is exciting. Like, it's like, it's really cool that he's had like this like career, like, it's like kind of similar to Jan, where it's just like his career is just like coming together, like after like having, kind of ups and downs in the UFC. He comes down to middleweight. He looks like, I mean, like he's freaking chiseled. He's insanely like athletic for this division. He's just insanely like comfortable at 185. And it's like, I don't understand why he didn't do this sooner. I don't know why he didn't decide like, I'm gonna get in shape and like all of a sudden like use all the tools that I have that I've been using at heavyweight when I was like heavy and slow. But it's like, he's got insane power. I think that's definitely something that's going to be a factor. But again, when I'm saying that, I feel like we've been saying that about the last people that Izzy's been fighting. So it's like, what are we going to do? Like, we need someone who's like, like a Darren Till type. It's like, yeah, he's an athlete, like he can strike. It's like that's all the people that we're putting up against Izzy. And then it's just like, he's just taking them all down. I don't think really at all. There's someone right now that I would say with like, full confidence, they are a legitimate challenge. I just don't think it's happening.
So one final hype question about Izzy. Can he reach like that Silva status?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the people that he's fighting, I think his resume right now is just better. And I think that he cares about his resume. Like watching Anderson Silva was awesome. But a lot of the wins he has did not age very well.
Yeah.
Like I think that you look back at his record and then you look at like those people after that fight or, even like before that fight, and you're kind of just like, well, this was in the days of like light heavyweight kind of like it was exciting, but it was definitely like building its way up to being, like one of like its more like premier, like the UFC's premier division skill wise. And I don't think it ever really reached that, to be quite honest. I still think there's a lot more talented divisions, middleweight in the UFC. Middleweight is definitely like has exciting people.
Yeah.
But I just don't think when you look at Anderson Silva's record, light heavyweight and middleweight, like that he has the wins like Whitaker, the wins like Costa, where it's like Costa might not age well, in a couple years from now, maybe Costa does fall, and like the Gastelum win doesn't age well because Gastelum kind of showed, it was an incredible fight, best performance of Gastelum's career, and then he kind of just like we see now like maybe not exactly the greatest fighter in this division. So this division's not exactly great. Same way, like middleweight, light heavyweight were getting built up when Anderson was champ. But I do think like a Whitaker win is incredible. Romero win was really awkward. I don't think the fight was good. It'll look good on paper that he beat him. I like the Costa win right now. I think he's got, I don't know, 2 or 3 more wins to really be like with absolute certainty. There's no debate between him and Anderson. Just because I think the value of his wins is like so good. And it really does come down to Whitaker. Whitaker was just like, Whitaker is an incredible fighter. And he like absolutely just styled on him. It was incredible. Yeah. I think about that fight constantly just because it was such an incredible performance.
Yeah, like it was such a good fight. It's like Silva never really because he's the like really established champion. He's never fight like an established champion like Whitaker, and right. In a way, just that how different are the eras when you talk about how fights last or how they're looked back from, like the time we're watching UFC and MMA in general right now, even from like regulations with PEDs and stuff like that. Yeah. And you look back at those light heavyweights, probably middleweights, and you started looking back at it like, from like 2007, I don't know, to 2013 or something like that. You're like, cross. So like, yeah, I feel like Izzy definitely has the potential, needs like 2 or 3 more, but we've kind of established that like without a fluke perhaps in like the next 2-3 years, also assuming Izzy fights like twice a year, like no one's gonna touch him for now. So that's a really interesting outlook to just in a time where we know we're watching some like a future GOAT born, especially with the promotions they're doing. But then like we knew it. It's kind of hard to figure it out sometimes, but then we know he's the one, and then like just to see how high he can reach instead of like him being good and being a champ.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is like think about how many miles he has on him from like kickboxing and stuff. Oh, yeah. He does not show it at all. Like, is there gonna be like I think the biggest thing with him, like like we were talking about, maybe there's a fluke loss, but it's like I think the biggest thing is like when do the wheels fall off? Like like he's been doing this for a long time. I know people are just getting used to him now because like he's in the UFC, and that's obviously the biggest stage that he's been on in his career. The guy's been doing it a really long time. Like he's how much more does he want?
He's fighting like 3 times a night before.
Yeah, right. Like the whole thing is, the whole thing comes down to like, how much does he still want to do it? How much can his body take? And he's getting clean wins. He's getting like, he tweeted after this fight, among other things, a million other things that we don't need to get into. But he tweeted after this fight that he was like, didn't even get touched. It's like, that's all you can really ask for right now. You're him.
He could have gone like full Kimaev and fight like 3 times in 67 days or whatever.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about that guy until he actually ends up somewhere.
Please, yes, I have about had it with the it's just like, let's just have every prospect, as soon as they establish any semblance of a name, let's have them fight the number 5 person in the division. It's just like, yeah, the UFC listens to that, and that's how they wind up not developing any of the talent, because that's what happens.
And so,
They got an established
and
star in Izzy. You couldn't have messed that up.
He's about to get like, I don't know, like cobra'd or like tangled on by Damian Maia, and that might be something to watch. But thank you very much, Shane, for hopping on. Of course,
absolutely.
We're the UFC guys in my past life, your current life. So no one better to have on than you. But like, yeah, we'll be back with more content, be it soccer, be it now the other things column, and I'll see you soon, I guess.
Beautiful. Thanks, Ryan.